This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots. In a world of fractured stories, timelines buried, and truths erased, one project dares to ask the question, what if everything you thought you knew about history was wrong? This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots. A 5,025-year simulated walkthrough tracing a melanated Adam back to 4000 BC. Over the last decade, new revelations confirm a black origin for humanity, from European vaults to tribal memory, Babylon to Britain. This is not just history, this is a challenge, a simulation, a movement. Meet the man behind GTR, Dr. Wilton McDonald II, Caymanian, British, Jamaican, Haplogroup E and stateless for 26 years. Now a global explorer, 119 countries and counting. A hedge fund lawyer, a UK chartered accountant, a seeker of the lost archives of our people. But the question remains, if all black people came out of Africa, does that make us only African? Or are we also European, Scottish, Native American, Jacobite Hebrew, Asian? GTR exists to answer that question. You've felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. A splinter in your mind. That splinter has brought you here, to GTR. Whites can't trace their roots before the 1800s. Where's ours? Where are the tribes? The languages, the kings, the queens, the true Hebrews? Where did the giants go? Where are the Neanderthals? Angels, aliens. Why do we speak in so many tongues? Was Babel just a myth? A memory? History has holes. Hollywood has lied. The system was never made for us to remember. Only 5 to 8% of people today are white. And what about the 1800 stories and postcards of the Cabbage Babies? But nearly all history books center their story. That doesn't add up. Atlantis, lost cities, vanished civilizations, or were they erased? Try GTR. Take the red pill and awaken to the truth of your ancestors. Or take the blue pill and keep dreaming a fantasy. GTR, a simulated walkthrough of Black Hebrew history and eschatology. This is the beginning of remembering. This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots.
Welcome again. This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots. Again, we are filming live from Cambridge University. I'm your host, Dr. Wilton McDonald II, and we're going live again from Cambridge. This is episode 32, and in this episode, we're going to cover the result for test takers that was done. It took several weeks to run. We have here, I'll let them introduce themselves. We have David Wakeza, a Kenyan journalist. We have VP Cook, Vice President of ADDI. We have Reverend Joshua Maponga, a man that needs no introductions. Gentlemen, welcome to GTR. Welcome to the program. A deep dive into your genealogy and some of the things that I've discovered in interpreting, just parsing out some of the results. Go ahead and introduce yourselves, gentlemen. Go ahead, you have the floor.
Well, I'm VP Cook, Vice President of ADDI, African American, descendant of the formerly enslaved, coming to you from the U.S., Jacksonville, Florida.
I'm Joshua Maponga J. Marara, from Farmers of Thought in Zimbabwe, Southern Africa. We come from an organization, Farmers of Thought, where we are involved in social and community transformation.
My name is David Wekesa from Kenya, a student at KCO University.
I wanted to just dive in, and I know that VP Cook, you have responsibilities, family responsibilities. I want to do a dive into results. So what happened is, as part of the PhD, or it's called a third PhD I'm writing up, I've studied in law, I've studied economics, finance, but this has been a journey of mine to research my namesake, to really map out what it is to be not only just melanated and black, but also to be what are my roots? What are the essence of just being here on this planet? How far can I go back? And I was able to, go back. I mean, there are family trees. I will provide you with some step as to how I got here. I'm going to just run through my own story, jump directly to VP Cook because his time is limited. And I'm just going to just represent and let you know, each one of you and the audience have seen some of this. It has been a long journey for me. And when you look at the family tree, and I'm presenting here my story, which has taken me more than 6 years to flesh out. And when you look at my mother's side, I didn't know. I too can say son of the formerly enslaved, but not knowing who I am, what I am, where I am, when I am, I just wanted to connect and say I grew up in Cayman Islands. My parents were born in Jamaica. My dad has this Scottish name, Scottish-Irish name, McDonald, which is on almost every corner, the burgers and fries. And yet people said, well, you're African. And I said, yes, well, at least I'm part Indian. And the DNA companies, most of them are mischievous, websites and the headquarters, either in Tel Aviv or in Utah, in Latter-day Saints, Mormon territory. And that's the truth. You look at all the DNA sites, it's concentration of either Jewish or Mormon Latter-day Saints ownership of the sites. And they take away and strip away. I've seen them, my Indian ethnicity, and I'm looking at my tree. This is my own family tree. Yes, I'm married to a Polish woman, and she admits that she's not really Polish. If I do a deep dive and just say, select my son, who's Alexander. And I said, well, that's Alexander's picture. And you see his grandparents, his mom's parents, they're Polish, but the tree stops around the mid-1800s. There's nothing there. There are projections, only projections. And I clarify, she's European, she's white, she's Caucasian, but their tree really stops in the mid-1800s. And I've seen the photographs, I've visited the graves, I've looked at the website, at the grave sites, at the record-keeping companies and the government records. It's really, truly, what you could go back is only the middle to the late 1800s. And she concludes that she is not likely to be Polish because, as you see here, this will always remain my background forever. I won't change it on GTR. That's the King of Poland. As black as you can be, Augustus the Strong. They called him Augustus Drugi, strong. And this is a Polish prince, Dominik Lubrinski. And this painting was painted in Poland in the year 1706. Rather, I say 706 because of this missing year. That's what GTR looks at. But that's a king of Poland and Lithuania. That's a Polish prince. And when I visited his castle, I saw in the oldest part of that castle, the faces ripped off, and that's been a mark, a card calling sign. All the faces. I'm in Cambridge walking around, I see ripped off faces right here in Cambridge. I go around in North Africa, I count 3,000 ripped off faces. Estonia, Germany, it's not about the Sphinx. The Sphinx is missing a nose, but I've gone through, and I show speed also said, well, the missing nose, but it's not about one place. Even in England, Charles II, his statues in London, face ripped off. Henry VIII, coins, face ripped off. And this man, Jerzy Lubinsky of Poland, Polish prince, I went to his former house in Poland, 8 pillars. The oldest part of the castle is in Poland still. 8 pillars, 8 faces ripped off. I took the pictures with my own camera. So King of Poland, black, he invited these guys to hang out with him and have a party. Swedish prince, he became king, Carl Gustav from Sweden. And this guy, you could see his cap is not so glorious. His cap has a little feather in it because he was the lowest rank. He is was a German count, Friedrich von Echtstedt. So the German, Polish, Lithuanian, and Swedish. So this is the history that has come to my desk, has come, and I've confronted, how could these guys be 300 years ago, whether it's 1706 or 706 because of the time change and the fake 1000 middle years they put in. But 300 years ago, these guys ruled and dominated the whole of Europe. So that's my legacy, my background. And when I look at my wife's tree, I love her to death, but there's nothing beyond the 1850s. It's blank spots. I see the pictures. I see her mother's parents. I see her father's parents. I never met most of them. I met her mother's father's mother. I met her, but all the others died. But they have really no records, not much history. When I go on my side, leaving my wife, because my wife is Polish, but not really Polish. Guess what? The Polish kings and royals were black people. We know that. So when I go to my side and I look at my dad and I look at my ancestry, the easy one would be my mom. And she's an Indian. Though the DNA companies, they discount and they tell me, no, actually you are 70% African and 30% Indian. Well, that must be the new math, because half of 100 would be, say, 30, or half of 100 could be 20. I should be half of 100 should be 50, and I'm 50% Indian. But they discount and they rob and take away the ethnicity. So I know that my mom was born to an Ezekiel, Ivan Ramlal, and Justina Sibran. And these are all Indian names. And I can take them back to India, where they came from, working in Jamaica as indentured servants. And they, again, came from Asia. We know that there has been some mixing, cloning, all these things happening, but all they know, they came from India and went to Jamaica as indentured servants. So there is that admixture of whatever business they were doing in changing the population. Indian people have both black and white features. They have darker skin, especially south of India where they're from, Madras. They have darker skin, but they have straight hair and thinner nose and thinner lips. So it's a mixture of, we call it, I would go on and say Cabbage Baby, mixture of the whites and us and indigenous people. Now, when you go to my father's side, that's where you pick up this real story now. We look at the black McDonalds, going from William Edward and going to Daphne Potts. George Potts was basically a white guy. We have a composite of him. We don't have a true picture, but we say that George William Potts was mostly white. And his story was not from England. We traced it through Panama and from the New York, Ellis Island, where they all congregated. A lot of Americans just showed up there and they didn't know where they're from. They were given names and then they entered. And in their case, they moved to Panama. And from Panama, they moved over to Jamaica. And then when they went to Jamaica, they were given a whole mountain. And that's what happens with a lot of the whites who came and they pretty much got land and they got rights and they got everything. In this case of Potts, he got a whole mountain called Porter's Mountain. It stays in Potter and Potts' hands even today. Now, when you go do this dive and open up the tree for my father, you'd see that there are Scottish names, and a lot of it, records have been thin, but it goes out, and I can show you that through the Glencoe, the massacre, and the tracing of this line, which is the black McDonald's, the real McDonald's, the E. And I'm going to come and strike a point where both myself, VP Cook, and Reverend Maponga, we have an intersection. And it's going to be apparent. I'm going to actually leave this page open. I'm advancing generation by generation and I'm moving. I did not make the change for the year because I just left it as is. 1400s, could be really 400s, but I'm advancing. And I keep going back in time, all black McDonald's. I'm going to come to a stop, a point where there was a migration. And we know that there was a migration from the MENA region and into Europe and into Scotland. Malcalpine, he was called the Niger, certainly not a title for the typical white guy, but that's what he was called. That's ancient Scotland. I am both Hebrew and Muslim. So again, the rhetoric, I'm not going to hate. I'm both. So there's a branch where it goes into Al-Ali and Yahya, which is the lion. And VP Cook calls it, he is called Simba the lion. So VP Cook, now I'm going to show you the intersection of families. Now you tell me now, VP, because I want to do your story first because I know your time is limited. I respect that. So I'm going to just ask you, where did you get with Simba the lion? Please come in and tell us about that, because this is the symbol of the Yahya family. You will see in a minute that you have that connection. So go ahead and tell me about Simba the lion story.
Once I became VP of ADDI, I traveled to Zimbabwe. And my time in Zimbabwe, so the ambassador said that I needed a totem. She gave me the totem of Simba, Simba Mabika. And from there, it's where it actually originated. I mean, she just pulled it out. She said you needed a totem.
Not seeing this picture before. I mean, I'm gonna blow it up. I'm gonna blow it up so you can see it. But I'm telling you, I was smiling. I had some gift for you. You didn't know this. You didn't know it was coming on, but this is the symbol for the Yahya family. Black Hebrew.
Oh wow.
Black Hebrew.
Wow. Dig that. So time is converging.
Indeed. So, and Joshua Maponga has the same link because we are Haplogroup E brothers. So this is my family, and I have given my story. But because of time and interest, I want to jump right ahead and share VP Cook's story, and I'm going to just turn my attention over to it. I've given you my timeline, and I'm going to keep that frame open, and I'm going to just come back to it when I complete VP Cook's genealogy. We have here maternal of L, and this is it. You did not know this before. You only heard of E. So
right.
You are haplogroup E, but you are maternal L, and L is Eve. L goes back to Mother Eve, Africa, and all black women can trace their roots to Eve. And I can just say, Joshua Maponga, before you even ask, your mother is L as well. So in the case of my family, my wife is Polish, she's a white woman, she's H. Her father is an R, he's a white guy, he's an R. And some of us brothers, we carry that R, but that is really the prototypical white male. So if you're E or A, B, C, D, you're a black male. If you are L, only L alone, you're a black woman. So in the case of you, VP Cook, you are dark meat all the way. You are of Haplogroup L. You have a Lockett as a surname. That's Barbara Lockett. But it branches out into a Mena Bridget Blackwell and a Herman Lockett.
Right.
And it keeps going because you have Lois Blackwell from Louisiana. And I can tell you this, before I started your journey, I had Blackwell family on the tree. It was there, right there. So if you go past, you'll see that there is ancestors on your mom's side that will take you to several countries. And I want to tell you this emphatically. You have surnames Morales. When you go down into the Jews trace their roots by moms, when it really should be father, according to the Bible. But anyway, but if you follow your maternal link from mother going down, you'll find names like Morales, like Bland, coming from Venezuela, coming from the USA, coming from Madagascar, coming from Angola, coming from Zambia, Sierra Leone, Yemen, Somalia, Mozambique, Kenya, Libya, Nigeria, Brazil, and even UAE. That's where your matches on your mom's side are all coming from. It goes all the way back to Africa and those countries. Now your maternal, paternal, the Blackwell side opens up and it takes you all the way back, even to England. And I'm telling you, I had these names before we had any connection. I had Samuel Blackwell taking me all the way back, and this goes to Virginia, but we're going to be picking up this line going all the way back to jolly old England. Joseph Blackwell. And you could see this straight is an English record, 1650. Every time I touch a record of importance dealing with someone, note, you see a Hebrew name. There's a Joseph, there's a Samuel, there's always some kind of biblical name. And I pick it up and I see it. So that's all on your further Blackwell lines. And I just want to let you know that that's your maternal links. Be proud of it. That's who you are. And that's in your DNA. Now, switching to your father's side, your dad being Benjamin James E. Cook, and his father was a John Clarence, his wife, Beatrice Ernestine Martin. Now, that is what I picked up. And then his father would be Matty Cook. Now, there is a Lincoln connection between the two worlds. And let me explain. There's Cook, C-O-O-K or C-O-O-K-E. You tell me now, what have you uncovered when it comes to the interaction between C-O-O-K and C-O-O-K-E? Because I know of other variations, like in my family, there's Rankin and Rankin. So I've seen that happen with the E added. You tell me what your experience was in terms of the E dropping and the E, E applying. So Cook with the E and keep Cook without an E.
As far back as I can go that I know of is the Cook without the E. But I have had experiences where others have said that they thought that I may be their relative, but they had an E on the end of their Cook. So I don't know when the E dropped for the Cook. As far back as I can go, it's my grandfather, John Cook. Now, as far back, I haven't went further back than him at this stage. So you're telling me something that is very informative regarding the adding of the E and prior to the dropping of the E.
You have in my name McDonald and McDonald. So they put the A in. When my dad wrote his name, he would put two lines underneath the C. That suggests a missing letter. And in my family, there's Rankin and there's Rankine with an E. So I've seen it both. But it's all from, I think, the same stock. And I see in the record that we have some similarities and we have some common interests. And what I've seen here, what I've seen here, there are some Irish brothers that came to Jamaica and they were Cooks with the E. But when they left Ireland, some of them, they dropped the E. So they had E's. And you could see here, there's a Richard Cook, 1820. There is a common link that I found because we do have that common paternal match on the E side, and it had to have come from some place. So what I've found out in my whole database of all the records, there's some that are concentrated on the Irish or English side and others that are only US. This family is the only one that includes a bit of America, and it also includes England and Ireland, and also it includes common ancestor that you have with the McDonald, which is the Costa McDonald. So we have relatives in Jamaica. In Jamaica, we have the Vernon family, and they have U.S. connections as well with the surname called Ward, and we have even Mexico. You notice on your mom's side, you even had a Venezuela and Colombia. Still. So here we have a Mexican Petrona ball that's near the Cook line. But the most important link that I want to draw, which is an actual DNA connection, is through the McDonalds. Because if you don't know what happened, there was a slaughter of McDonalds. These were black McDonalds. But there was a slaughter in Glencoe, Scotland, and the English were fighting. Now, a lot of them scattered and they changed their names. Now, you could have a situation that you could have a Cook, but their name, again, was changed from a McDonald, but you do have a strong McDonald match. Now, I found a McDonald, which is your cousin. He is still alive. He's living in, he's 109 years old, and his name is DaCosta McDonald. So as I go through and go down the line, I could tell, well, let me just go down this rabbit hole and a connector from the Cook line. So we have this relative here that connects back up. His name is Da Costa. He goes back to the McDonald line, and you share a common relative with him.
Ah,
His grandfather, you can see a picture here. I'm going to blow it up. Stately looking man. He's going to dress up in his suit. No dinky slave thing. The man was
oh
stately.
man.
He lived in Grenada.
I've
And-
seen this photograph before.
And this is the man,
Oh,
his
man.
grandfather. So he was born right in the 1840s, and he still remembers him like it's yesterday.
Wow.
So you are connected genetically with this line. They're all haplogroup E's. They're all real McDonald's. So I said VP Cook. I mean, I know that, you know, we represent the African diaspora. And so what my message is to people is, and you could see the Irish connection with the Cook, with the E, and then into Jamaica and also in America, is that we embrace, I feel proud of my African heritage. I won't change it for anything, but I will not allow anyone, especially if they're corrupt and they're hungry for land and they're stealing, and, you know, they've been stealing and putting all of us down. They want to keep us in a box. So for the sake of corruption, they minimize our roles. We are, and as I say the same thing to all David and Reverend Maponga, we are more than just meets the eye. We are more. We are not just limited to one country, one place in time, or the planet. So with the case of your line, and this is where I wanted to show you what the scientists would say about your tracker. I put in your tracker, this is what they say, because we are not limited to one place. So you are American, yes, but you're also Irish Cook. You also have Jamaican links. You have the Trinidad and the cousins, and it lands you up in Ireland. Now, where it goes after that, it very well will be Africa. So this is what another site, and you could put in your haplogroup, and I will share that with you now.
Okay.
This is called SNP Tracker. Now, this is a research site that you can go on and you can see your pathways. You have EBY 133920. I don't understand the site sometimes, because one they said now you ended up in Africa, but you went towards the Middle East, towards Saudi Arabia. You came back into East Africa, and then you wound up into Central Africa. The last point is somewhere in Central Africa. Looks like it's a desert in the middle of like the Sahara desert. But this is where science doesn't make sense. But they did not connect the line over to Scotland. I just wanted to share this with you. If you look at where mine is, because I guess I'm a loudmouth and they know of me already. Look at my line. The corrupt buggers, they connected my line to Scotland. And you can see that we did the path, like we're wandering around, and then finally made it all the way through. They'll tell you more people need to test in your group because you're assigned a box. My box is EFT 405608. And if you were to do a deeper analysis, you've done the deep how, but if more people test, they will actually contribute towards your line, increasing your line. You'll actually have to do a little bit more testing and get others to test. But this is my line. But if I go back to your line, this is where the meandering is around Africa. And I'll do it from Reverend Maponga too. According to them, it starts at BC 232,000, which makes no sense. So BC 232,000 is when they said that mankind was evolved, and they're tracking it from there. And then you could see that it's progressing all the way with the countries noted. These are all your relatives. Note the country flags. We have England too. We have Morocco. We have, Ireland. You have some Irish, cousins in there. And when you advance to the end, it's going to be America. And then this looks like it, Tunisia, Algeria. Look at Algeria. Look like you have some Algeria cousins. And it also includes Brazil, Jamaica, and even, Puerto Rico. They tell you, let's see, timelines. GTR is about timelines, and they're going back thousands and thousands of years.
Wow.
But a lot of it represents faulty science. We do it because for the sake of testing, but they show you they go back to even 100,000 years BC. I mean, they're showing you population growth rate, which that doesn't make sense. I mean, population grew, or what it grew from time of Christ, 150 million people to where it is now at 8 billion. They're trying to explain the migration, that people had, difficulties, famine, all of that sort of thing. What you're missing here is the extension from Africa into Europe. And that's what's missing from your profile. So yeah, VP Cook, I'm happy to note that when you look at your family tree, you're going to get back to this right here. Simba, this lion is where we all intersect. The whole Da Costa, when you go through Da Costa's line, you will intersect with this here, where we're looking at Yahya and the call it sons of Ishmael, sons of Isaac, bin al-Ali. So this line here is where we all meet up. And they said roughly around 600 AD. So roughly 1400 years ago. That's where we all converge. That's where it's at. And so, yeah, I know you have to run, but this is where I was trying to lead you to, that your line, as far as Cook is concerned, intersects with McDonald's, and then with the McDonald's intersects with the Hebrew line of the bin Yahya family. We will dive into more of it as the matches come in, because they are populating, and you have more names that will be coming through in the next couple of days to about 2 weeks. I will keep you abreast, and I'll keep you informed as to the other names that come in.
This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots.
I sent you quite an exhaustive list there, and I know maybe you might still want some time to work on it and plot it in nicely and see all those names, how they intersect. But I dug in right deep, almost 15, 16 years worth of work there.
I see that. And I wanted to share with you the work that I've done so far. You have your tree, which you have your mom's side, which the surname was Silendeni.
Silendeni is her first name. Jamela Mafa Sibanda, the lion. That's her surname.
And that's the surname is?
Jamela Mafa, M-A-F-A.
Now your father, Lazarus, and then his father, Mara Joshua. I noted those profiles, and I noticed that you have also a Germanic connection, which is on Schiffer, and it comes up in your DNA profile. But I was able to record some of the names that you gave me following along, mostly Zimbabwe, but it did not stay there. The lines connect to the same as VP Cook, Yahya, and the lion. It is not limited to one location. It's Yahya, and it's a Hebrew surname that connects all of us, all of the E's, you, me, and VP Cook, and pretty much all the other McDonald's. Even the older gentleman who lives in Trinidad called Da Costa McDonald, he has same links with the Yahya family. Have you come across this name at all in your research and history? It's the Haplogroup E line, and its symbol is a lion.
My mother's side is their totem is the lion. In Zibande, the Jamela, the Shumba, that's the lion. That's on my maternal side.
I'm talking about the Maponga side. This is paternal side.
The Maponga side, we are the monkey, we are Herus, the baboon, the Nkimas, Mpologomas, the Piris, the Shoko, the Vuzigenas, Mtaung, Twene, Kabo, Jambas, Mtolo, Fakudze. I could give you a whole list of the monkeys in Africa who are all linked up to my totem.
That's what I have been researching. And just as how I did VP's line, I wanted to share with you the results on WIFO. What links us to is the Kenyan people referred to as the Kikuyu people of Kenya. That runs deep in our DNA spread. I have to bring in David because he's from Kenya. Tell me more, David. Have you heard about the Kikuyu people from Kenya?
No, I know the Kikuyu. I went up to Mount Kirinyaga. When I'm in Kenya, I'm actually Kipi again. Kipi again, that is the baboon monkey, the Caucasus monkey totem, which is in Kima, in Uganda, Kipyageni in Kenya?
Kikuyu people are the largest Bantu-speaking community in Kenya, and they are based in central part of Kenya. But recently, because migration is still going on, you will find them all over the country and even within the East Africa region. There's a time I was listening to Maponga, and he described vividly on the 9 daughters of Akikuyu, the 9 daughters of Mumbi, and even he ended up stating that one of the daughter, she migrated to the southern part of South Africa, and that's where uh, she gave birth to the South African. The other daughter moved to Central, the other daughter moved to the northern part of Africa. So I'm really aware and I understand who are the Kikuyu people. And actually, as I was going through my research, I found out that the Kikuyu are one of the dominant people in East Africa with Haplogroup E, together with the Luo in Kenya and the Luya people still in Kenya. Actually, I'm a Luo.
I would actually put a correction, not one of the largest. The Kikuyus, if I could make a blunt statement, amongst the oldest clans and tribes on the continent, the Kikuyu, the Hottentots, and the Aborigines would be able to take the trophy as some of the most organic and indigenous clans from creation, because they also are living within the Great Rift Valley at the source of the River Nile, between Mount Rwenzori, Mount Kilimanjaro, Mount Kirinyaga, and Lake Victoria. The source of the Nile becomes the source of life. That's Embu for us, Embo, which is one of the daughters of Mumbi, who becomes our mother for Guruswa, the tribes of the South, and all of us in the South. When we say we are going back home, we are going back to Embu. We're going back to Embo, who is the daughter of Mumbi.
That's fascinating. And a lot of the history. How about the religious practices of the Kikuyu people? Because I'm always interested to know about the Jewish connections. What can you tell me about their religious practices, observances, maybe Shabbat? What do you know about them and their religious religions and religious beliefs?
They call their god, or rather, they believe in a god called Ngai. Ngai is their god, and as I know, according to the oral traditions of the Akikuyu people, they used to worship their god under a mkumu tree. That's a tree, a religious tree to them, and most of the time they used to pray facing Mount Kenya because they believe that's where the genesis of life is. The Mount Kenya is also called Mount Kirinyaga, as Reverend stated earlier, and that's their practices. They used to offer sacrifice under that mkumu tree, or a place where direction facing to Mount Kenya. That's how they used to practice their religion. And recently, even the traditionalists from the same clan, or rather the same community of Akikuyu people, they are still doing it in the country.
I'm pleased, and I could tell you that if I go back to the snip tracker, Reverend Maponga, you may not know yet, but I'm gonna share this. You see this track? This is the map. When we did VP Cooks, first when you looked at my haplogroup, it went EFT 405608. It went straight to Scotland. Because I mean, I have rounded up a lot of cousins, and I have paid for them to test. And this is a more refined model, which it links back. If you do that and have brothers, cousins, but they have to be men, because it's the Y chromosome. So if the more men you have, Joshua and VP Cook, you will see this extended. This line will extend. Right now, guess where you're ended up? In the Iron Age. This is pre-Roman. I said, these people are crazy people, because Roman time started in 150 BC. So 150 BC. So this is Iron Age. Guess which country you landed up, Reverend?
Must be in Yemen or somewhere there. I don't know where I ended up.
This is Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
This is look at this. This is where they said your line ends. That's the
Before you go far, I need to just consolidate some notes with the young men there. The emperor of the Great Zimbabwe is called Mwene Mutapa. And the god of the Kikuyu is called Mwene Nyaga, who is Ngai. So the Mwene, which means belonging to, we share the similar dynastic emperor title in the south with the title of God in the Kikuyu, which is Mwene Nyaga, and Mwene Mbire, which is one of my titles, and Mwene Mutapa.
It features so greatly and so prominently in your DNA profile. And I'm happy to share this with you because for me, it is about putting it, we have to do this, gentlemen. I mean, it took me.
And what is also interesting in Kikuyu, because I did a bit of research on that. What's also interesting in the Kikuyu religion is that God is not a bachelor. Mumbi is the wife, and Ngai is the husband. So we actually have a male and female deity who make the 9 children plus 1. Remember, they didn't believe in counting up to 10, 0. So there's 9 who are born plus 1, the one who remained. If you read that myth, that story, it'll be very interesting to note that it's actually the male god who is Ngai and his wife who is Mumbi, and then they had 10 children, but they're only allowed to mention 9 because the other one remained at home. So it's always 9 plus 1. So we have in our own cosmology, we actually have a family god rather than having a bachelor god who sits in heaven all by himself. And when he wants to make children, he goes and makes another man's wife pregnant. So it's quite an interesting twist when Christianity comes and they have the Jesus story where God made Mary pregnant vis-a-vis our cosmology, where actually God has a wife and makes his wife pregnant and makes his own 10 children. So we become part of the family where we can identify our mother and we can identify our father in God. Whereas on the Christian space, you can only have a singular who is supposed to be omnipotent, omnisex, or unisex. He is both one in one, and all this Trinitarian hogwash walks into the space where God must be transforming himself between spirit and flesh, but does not want to see a woman. And by the time the Bible is written, Islam is written, and Judaism is written, and Christianity, women seem to take no position in that conversation, because by making God monotheistic instead of family-oriented, you are bound to end up with a bachelor God, a bachelor Jesus, a bachelor Holy Spirit. So it's 3 men, then out of them, then they must create a woman out of a rib. But that theology on its own, if all nature, all creation, trees, animals, flowers have male and female, which becomes a standard cosmological phenomenon. Why is it that when we come to God, then we begin to deal with a supra singular monochrome of a monotheistic, and they even make it sound like to have a monotheistic God, it is divine. You must have a one God kind of concept. But one God, why does he come out plural in his singularity? So is there a feminine part in him and a masculine part in him? And if it is so in his creation, why is it not so in him? And then Matthew throws that argument through the window when he says, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Meaning to say, as it is below, so it must be above. And above for us is Mount Kirinyaga, where Mumbi and Ngai reside. And then the 9 pillars, the 9 shrines that surround Mount Kirinyaga become the cardinal points through which all humanity walks from there. So the Ethiopian look comes from one woman, the Nigerian look comes from another woman, the Congolese look comes from another face, the Embo look from another face. So the tribes of the earth can actually trace themselves to the 10 children who are born, the 10 girls who are born out of that. And of course, if you read the myth, it will be very interesting to note how each one of them now wanted to get married, and they were supposed to go and pick up sticks, and then they bent the sticks up, and then they all met their own husbands. But the genealogy through maternal becomes very strong in Kirinyaga, that the creation did not start with men, Rather, the creation started with women. And I think in your writing up, you may want to capture that from the Kikuyu and Agikuyu mythology, that the creation of humanity starts with God, male and female. Then immediately after that, it goes on to females. And it is females who are going to marry their husbands, not husbands who are going to marry their women.
Thank you for that, Reverend. Thank you for that. And as I said, we welcome all these ideas, suggestions, because we're here to explore. And GTR is to kick the tires. Even though you have that Seventh-day Adventist background, I have the Seventh-day Adventist background, but we notice that there are things like the white Jesus hanging on the wall, like the all Bible figures that are white, including Ellen G. White, ironically, Ellen G. White, whose name was White, but she was not a
But she
white
was
woman.
black. But
She was a black woman, and they keep putting it and keep showing it and pushing it in your face. And for me, that is something that this has to stop in our generation, in our lifetime. I cannot afford for the next generation. That's why I really do what I do. It's this message that we need to get across. And that's something I spoke to David, I spoke to people all around. We need to reach that next generation. Say, mark your textbooks, stand up. When the teacher is presenting you with this history, stand up. No, teacher, you're wrong. Please, I don't accept that. We need to voice our views, because the least likely demographic of black, pink, yellow, red, of people on this earth, the least likely demographic of the non-Hispanic whites. They paint Jesus that color, which is, call it 7%, 8% of the planet today. How can you regress that number? How can you regress that mathematical number? How can you put it back into antiquity, into the Middle Ages, into biblical times? It's a farce. And that needs to stop, because you know what? That's their standard for stealing. If their God is white, then that means they own the world. Can someone wait? I'd like to hear your views on that, as far as the whitening of Jesus and why he remains white today.
The theology around the whitening of Jesus has become one of the biggest fallacies and lies of all times, because there's no way a North African, Uganda, Nile-based creation of Mumbi and Ngai starts off all black, moves over into Ethiopia, then becomes slightly lighter in complexion, then moves over into Palestine, then becomes like an Arab, like real semi-white, then moves over into Europe. By the time the neo-colonial Christianity comes to Africa, Jesus is transformed totally from being a black man to a blue-eye, blonde, white boy. And when I reject Jesus, it is from that concept that what you are now bringing to me under the London Missionary Society and telling me that I must become a Christian. You are not selling me the truth. You are not telling me the truth. You are not asking me to believe in what is historically, ethnographically, and theologically correct. Yes, you say I must just believe in Jesus and his color does not matter. But why must the color not matter? Because by refusing him color, you are refusing him his humanity. By refusing him color, you are insulting the nation through which he came into existence. By refusing him color, you are refusing him culture. By refusing him color, you are actually making him a colonial master rather than a sympathizer with the poor. So for me, it becomes very complicated that the Jesus we are talking about right now, it cannot be a savior to us. Because when he arrived, we lost our land. We lost our dignity. We lost everything under his supervision. And his priests and his pastors have not returned to us what belongs to us. Instead, we must just wait for this white guy, because he will take us to heaven and he will restore everything when he comes back. But what if I don't want to go to heaven? Why am I here up to now? My salvation must not be in heaven. My salvation must be now. I have come to set the captives free. And so the question is, where are the captives? Are the captives in heaven or the captives are on earth? And if Jesus cannot deal with my present condition on earth right now, I doubt it very much that I have to wait in the sweet by and by that he would deal with those issues, even when he's dealing with them in the sweet by and by. What is he going to do about those that have oppressed me? Because I'm told that in heaven, white and blacks and colors and Indians, all of them will be there. How will I deal with someone who oppressed me all my life? And the salvation of God is equal to all of us. Then God is not fair. The justice of God is not served when we give this Jesus a white complexion. I thank you.
David, you have any thoughts on that, on terms of what you see in Kenya? I see a lot of white Jesus images. Have you any thoughts on the subject and topic of white Jesus and how we can change it for the young people, the next generation?
The Reverend's views and insights. I think I'm overwhelmed. Speaking on it, I'll be just repeating and maybe even ending up messing. But let me just state what we were discussing the other day with a friend under a group called AYLF, that is Africa Youth Leadership Forum, in our meeting. And I was telling her that the white Jesus we know is not actually the real Jesus. And she ended up confronting me. We are trying to change perspective and trying to glorify the colored man, that is now the African, the black man, in the name of trying to tarnish the aspect of religion, the truth, because she knows that that's the truth, that the Jesus we know is a white Jesus. But for me, is the fear that we have as young people, is the fear of that is coming from not understanding what our true God is, not understanding the aspect of what we can do as black people in Africa. Because this same white guy who came in the name of Jesus, he came in a superior way, that he's superior, his ideologies are superior, his ways of worship are superior than our ways of worship. Remember that we were worshiping our own gods before the coming of this white Jesus. And so from that, we the people, the African people, rather the black people, we don't have the courage to stand and say that we have our own Jesus and this white Jesus is not the true Jesus. The white Jesus was just portrayed here for superiority, that the other race, this race is superior than this race, or rather these white people are superior than these black people. And for this narrative to change, we should start preaching the gospel of courage, the gospel of confidence among ourselves, that we can do it. And one thing I do believe, and I do repeat saying, is that the succession, or rather a white man succeeded in one thing, killing the self-belief in a black man, instilling a belief that he or she cannot do anything. He or she has an inferior God. He or she has inferior ideas. He or she has no point to say. And that if we can change that aspect and the narrative of having the confidence and the courage of saying that we are great people and we can actually do something as Africans, as black people, then from there we will now start understanding that indeed the white Jesus was a false Jesus. It was just placed there to show us how superior a white man is.
My thing, gentlemen, is that if you want to be fair, the lack of the hypocrisy, if you want to be fair, you could paint Jesus according to any demographic. You go to China, okay, you have a Chinese Jesus. I'm not trying to cheapen the image of Jesus at all. But when the preachers tell me and say that the color of Jesus doesn't matter, they are hypocritical. That's sheer evil. Because if you look at it's the height of hypocrisy. It's almost like schizophrenic, because you tell me that color doesn't matter, but yet there are billions, not just millions, billions of images of the same pasty white, Jesus all around the world. And you don't have images which, if you want to be fair, paint Jesus according to demographics. So one day, of course, in place, you have Indian Jesus, you have Korean Jesus, you have Chinese Jesus, you have Jesus according to demographics. But the demographics have been altered, have been changed, because we have the parasites, we have the cabbage babies, we have these things that are real and part of the history that's now unearthed. that we are seeing. I wanted to show that based on the major links that Reverend has in his DNA profile, Saudi Arabia, it features prominently. We go through this list, and you can see here, Reverend, Saudi Arabia is the strongest link that you have DNA wise, not Africa, but Saudi Arabia. And it also includes African countries, including the Congo, and in Zimbabwe, and Algeria, and even France, French, Black French, Nigerian, Jamaica, Bahamas, South Africa is here, Libya, Senegal. We have a Native American. We have few with Native American with the feathers. And again,
why Native American?
I mean, I have to say, and it's a not disrespect to anyone, but my mom's Indian. My mom's East Indian. She's a real Indian. And I could say that when you look at it, and I've studied this 5 years in the making, what Trump is doing, look at it. I know he's shaking the boat. What he's doing, and he's stripping out the Smithsonian, and he's actually taking down the images of slavery. I can say to Trump that he's on a mission. Of course, he's into dismantling America, and we're changing empires right now. But him speaking out against the type of slavery and Jim Crow, it was really bad. I'm not even discounting, it was really bad. But how far back do we go when we're thinking of the white guilt of the slave masters? Were they white or black? If they're in the 1700s, 1600s, there would be black people with black slaves. And then the tables turned to the native Indians. They were described as copper-colored, dark-skinned, swarthy people. I've seen records. Gentlemen, I have seen with my own eyes records where from the census bureaus, the names and the ethnicities are scratched off. One day they're Indian, the other day they're colored, then they're Negro, then they're Afro-American. And I've seen those records being changed and erased in real time. I mean, look at the biggest census they had was the 1890 census. They had 1870, 1890. Those records were burned up, just like the biggest depository of records in Northern Ireland. There was a big fire in the 1920s. And you say, is it coincidence? In the 1920s, the largest census in America, the 1870, 1890 census, and also the same 1920s, the census of the Scottish Irish housed in one place in Northern Ireland caught a fire. In the case of America, they put all the records in the basement. They still don't know what happened. Was it just electrical? No. Was it someone smoking? And in the same 1920s, you have major records being destroyed. So then when you go back to say, well, who was the father of X? Where did you get your name from? Who was your father? And it's broken in, it's information that's missing, and they can't go back, and then they claim, oh, well, this is war, or it is a result of these fires. And those were two major fires that consumed all the major records in America, and also all the major Scottish and Irish records, which would then, a lot of blacks were really Irish. Marcus Messiah Garvey was actually Marcus Messiah Mac Garvey. And we could see from VP Cook's information, the links with the Cook and Ireland and in Jamaica. I'm saying, and I'm proud of being an African, and I know all of you on this program, being from Zimbabwe, being Kenya, all I'm trying to get at is that our story is deeper. GTR story is to, and just examine those other linkages, because we are African proud to be. That's not going to change. But our ancestors explored other places. Our ancestors were living in other locations. We have caught up the DNA of other places. And so Europe, as we know it, because of this painting, and I let it stand, and other things coming out, these are people who are our relatives. And that narrative, when you color Jesus black, and if you paint Europe black, it's all over. There's no more colonizing power or imperialism? What can you do? What is the way in? If you do those two things, color Europe black and paint Jesus black, where you think the power will be, and who will then gain the power from those two things?
I think knowledge is power, and to inform is to liberate. And as such, when people, the greater good for me on this program, over and above the academic exercise, and to be in context with what is happening in South Africa right now, where people are fighting and chasing each other away from their homesteads, Mabahambe, South Africans feel that other people must go. Now imagine if a nation, a continent, can have such studies done profoundly, so that each and every person on the continent, they know themselves. I look at this as a political liberation tool. I look at this as a religious unification exercise. I look at this as a DNA revitalization. The study on its own breaks down all borders. If it was true that by DNA we are citizens of the world, then some of us, we belong to more than 20, 30, 40 countries. We belong to more than 60, 80 ethnicities. The information on its own breaks down the barriers of politics, immigration, and language barriers, and we begin to learn from each other and build a continent, build the world that we want. I mean, when you know what I know now, when someone says I'm from Yemen, the story changes. If someone says I'm from Kenya, I'm from Congo, the story changes. Whereas politically, I'm told that you belong there. You belong to the South. You are in that corridor there, and stay in that box where Berlin Conference puts you. So I really appreciate the study with the depth that it has, and some of the language that is being used, I'm not familiar. It's highly technical and it's medical language, but slowly but surely at a desktop study, just for you to know that, and now it also explains something to me. You would not believe it. One of my most favorite songs, a healing song of my life, is actually done by Red Indians. And there's something when I heard that song almost 10, 15 years ago, when I'm down and out, and that spiritual chant of the Red Indians just reaches me in a way I cannot. I'll send you the song. I'll send you the song that I listen to, and I don't know why. My brain in my entire life of education and training, there is no way I can be attracted to some Red Indian Native American music. But when you study your genes, then you understand that there is your blood remembers what your brains cannot remember. Your DNA stores more memory, and when you walk around the world, you wonder, why are you attracted to this? Why are you sympathizing towards that? Why do you negotiate like that? Why do you behave like that? And I think understanding your background, understanding your DNA, understanding your history helps you to appreciate your heritage, and most importantly, it makes you a better citizen of this world and a better neighbor, a better family person, a better community builder, and much better a negotiator who is always looking for areas of common interests rather than areas of division.
I too wanted to show you how even deep the DNA goes. It's not just about Maponga. It's about these particular people from Germany, the Schäfers. I want to make that clear. So, Reverend, it's not about Saudi Arabia. It's not about the Hebrew, which goes back to Yahya and those roots which remain very, very strong indeed. It's about these roots that you may not know. And this is an actual DNA link and connection. These people, of course.
Did you send me that?
Yeah, I will. Afterward, I'll set. But this is something I wanted to share that's new. It's Schäfer. I did send you a list, and it contains at least one name, but there's more names. But they're Germanic, and the people that sacked Rome, those were the Vandals, the Visigoths, the Lombards, the Suevi. They were black. tribes. They were Germanic tribes. They were black people, as Germany was black. I mean, look at this painting. I don't have to go far. I just look at this painting and turn my back and on the side, and like this dude right here, Friedrich von Echtsched. I mean, as black as can be, and he was the lowest rank. He was the lowest rank. How do I know he's the lowest rank? Look at his cap. Just take a look at the cap. The cap there is the smallest cap with a little feather in there, and he was the lowest rank. He was a count, and all these guys were kings and princes. And so, yeah, prince, king, prince, count. And he is black German. So these people are also your relatives, not maternal, but paternal. So you look at a very complex and diverse background on your father's side, not just Zimbabwe, because you think about what happened in the country, where was Zimbabwe 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 500 years ago. It's interacting with the DNA in Black Germany, with the Schaeffers, and some Jews are also called this name too, Schaeffers, but we know Jews and Hebrews are black people. This goes back here, and Saudi Arabia is there, and Yemen is there, and it's all linked and interlinked together. So I'm happy to bring that out, that's also part of your raw DNA cousins, connections, not an autosomal. What I'm talking about here is not autosomal DNA. I know it's hard with the audience trying to understand. The autosomal is a little part, 1% of your whole body, your genome, that tells you what your ethnicity might be. But we're talking about at the deep cellular level. We're talking about your Y chromosome. It takes you back hundreds and thousands of years in the past. And this is your profile. This is the Germanic roots that it's in your blood, in your DNA, and the DNA does not lie. So I'm happy to share this information with you. And this takes you to another level. When you relate and you see another person and they are saying, yes, I am this and I were from, and back to the South Africa issue. I am sorry, but you see, I apologize. You have 80% of the land being owned by not even 10% of the population. For me, that's foul, that's evil. The Dutch, as I understand it, and I've done the DNA, I went to Aruba. I had to get special licenses because they have restrictions on testing. I got samples for Macintosh and McDowell and other people with Macs. They turned out that they were A, letter A, and A comes out of E. E is the base. E is the first group, but they confuse us. They put it as the fifth letter in the male categorization, and E is the first. Then comes A, then B, C, D. That's original black man. And the other end would be R. Those are the cabbage baby types. Those are the prototypical whites. That's on the other end, only 200 years old. And in the middle, we have all sorts of varieties. Also on that end would be O, my mother's father. And I don't glorify because it's my mother's father who's now deceased, Ivan Ezekiel Ramlal, a man dark skinned from South India, was an O. There are two types of these cabbage babies. There were the R's and the O's. Some that looked with the Chinese looking Asian, and others that looked white. And there are two types. And they were proliferating. Because when I went to North Africa, I asked them, why can't you eat the wheat? They say, we can't eat the wheat because it doesn't agree with us. I say, black people have no problem eating bread. I don't care, whatever it is. We don't have any gluten allergy. And we can't process cow milk because guess what? We're not animal. And those are kind of things that we have to stick by and realize that I can't process milk. I'm not cow. I'm not my wife now. She's white. She can drink milk morning, 9, noon, night time. She can drink as much as she can. Me, I'm not able to process this. That agrees for most blacks. So when I went to Algeria and Tunisia, they told me, this is Middle Eastern area. They said, look, they were not this color. They were a darker skin. There are images I showed on another episode what a Moroccan man looked like in the 1800s. Black. It was a goat herder in a portrait of a black Moroccan. But Morocco was destroyed. They had fires. They destroyed a lot of the city. They had to rebuild it. I didn't find a lot of relics. But when I went to Tunisia and Algeria and Carthage, ancient Carthage, Roman towns, I saw that faces taken off. More than 3,000 faces. I took pictures of faces removed, and they could not take the sun. They had to have all the tours end before noon because the sun is too hot, 110. I was fine with it. It was the dry, hot heat, didn't bother me. And they said, sir, we cannot eat the wheat. They need special crops for us. And they told us, they said, we were not this color. So if they're saying to me that they were not this color, and Egyptian, same story, but they just have a problem with who they are. They don't even consider themselves African. But, you know, with Egyptian, with the Middle Eastern people being fair skinned, we have to ask that question, where did that come from? So it gets to the story about the cabbage babies, about the cloning, about these things, and it adds to it. It adds to that. When we have this knowledge, we sit on a platform. That's what I said, Reverend Maponga. We sit, but when you hear the nonsense, and it took me 13 universities to get to that level. But it took me a long journey, and I'm still studying. I'm here at Cambridge. I'm here. But when I'm processing and I see the nonsense coming, I said to myself, no, I don't accept that. Go away, because I know better. And I see the wall. I see here in Cambridge, I see walls where the wall is old, it's mossy, and then I see a face of a man that looks like a white guy with a straight nose, and that image, it's lighter, it's a different color than the wall. I say, you know, come on, guys. I mean, you're not even trying to make this thing up. Then I see other images that I took with my phone just this past week here in Cambridge, that the faces and noses are torn off, and then those images, the face matches the wall. They match the wall, but they're missing a face. And the ones with the face, with the nose, the straight nose, the color of the color you could see of the face, the stone, is different from the wall.
I think it's time up that the lies must be exposed now, and I'm looking forward, by the time we consolidate all this information into a booklet. I mean, some of our genealogies that are already there can be used as illustrations that maybe it explains even the mission and our existence, as to why do we seem to be so concerned about unity, connecting people. Maybe our bloodlines are calling on each other to say, man, you can't go on hating each other forever. You need to find your brothers, greet your sisters, and live in harmony with each other.
But that's why the story with South Africa, if that truth can be told, that brothers do not war against other one. Someone coming from Nigeria who wants to make a home in South Africa, the land, 80% of the land, it's owned by a minority whites today, but they did not come there as Dutch. The Dutch were black people. They came literally, as Guy Anderson told. He was on the show on episode 17. He's a Freemason. And he has the pictures, the cages. He has the images that his father, who was a Mason before him, was detailing how these children were sent off in trains and in cages to places like South Africa, to Argentina, to those places where you see whites are populated. That was showing. So we have that truth. And if they would just understand the truth, then that land needs to be taken back. That's sorry, but you don't own the land. You're not deserving of that land. You need to take that back. You have no right to it. You didn't come here in the 1600s, because the 1600s were not even the 1600s. And those people are Dutch Boers. They call them the Dutch Boers, were black people. They were not white. So you have no claim to the land. We need to have that, and to help solve this problem, because we are fighting blacks against blacks. We should welcome our brothers from Nigeria, welcome our brothers from Zimbabwe. Welcome you. Right now, you are Zimbabwe, but you have a South African lineage. I see it on the maternal line. So why is it that we're fighting brother against brother? So we need that truth to be out there, so we can help clear up this xenophobia and these problems that we are facing. We should not be facing these problems. We should not be fighting against each other. It should stop. We need the truth to be taken out into the mainstream. That's why I said to people, let's get GTR and get an influencer. And we get influencers on board, because we want this message to spread. We are number one rated for 5 months, but this show can get to the next level because we have a God-given duty. I can't the next generation to be beholden and to be shackled and to be imprisoned and held back because we think ourselves less than. This is a dive into the DNA of Reverend Maponga and Damian Cook. And the two other samples that I took, the gentleman called Somma Michel, his roots are really French Normandy roots. And when you look at his profile, it's old French. As you could see here, that he is Burkina Faso, but the name Michel goes to France and their French connections. As you can see, David and Reverend, his DNA profile goes to France. It's French. It's not Burkina only, it goes and extends to France. And the other person who I did, who turned out to be a Haplogroup R, he's not a true McDonald. And I'm sorry, but I told him and he has not replied yet. I think he's still licking wounds, but you could see the flag. I have this trifecta sort of flag, which is noted for the Caucasus. I use Caucasians. He has one genetic connection to Jamaica, but the R's, they terminate after the 1800s. So there's no family tree beyond. And he is a Haplogroup R, a black guy, but with white DNA. Just like you have Putin is a white guy, phenotype, but genotype. Putin is an E, like us.
Thank you very much for sparing some time. I know it's tedious, and your interests have also come to liberate us in one way or the other. The work has just begun. And I think the economy of the DNA, the politics of the DNA, the religion of the DNA, and all the subjects that we can study together to foster unity, continental establishment. There's nothing better than convincing and sharing truth to dispel the lies. And ultimately, it is to build a unified people. And so maybe the statement is true that says when you look backwards, you can see the future. When you know your history, you can know where you're going because you know where you're coming from. And many people are in a hurry to go to the global village, but they will not be safe in the global village if they don't have identity. You'll be running in there with pseudo identities, thinking that you're white, you're black, you're colored, you're whatever it is, but in actual effect, the DNA will never lie because the truth that is in our blood supersedes the truth that is in our ID and identification books and our geography. And I want to just say thank you to you and your listeners and your viewers and your technical team for making this study possible. And I appreciate the services that you have extended to ourselves. I'll surely be looking forward to a time when such research and study can be available to everybody. And for crying out loud, instead of creating nuclear weapons and creating guns to shoot each other, how embarrassing one day if we can do a DNA test on Trump and then he can discover that he killed Ayatollah Khomeini and Ayatollah Khomeini maybe it's his cousin. I'm just using this as a very off the hook kind of an example. If Obama one day can wake up to discover that the death of Gaddafi, he actually killed his nephew. I mean, look at the impact. Look at the impact of knowledge and what it does to anger and false nationalism. And with those words, I would like to encourage everybody to take some time to study more about their history and become better citizens of this world. I thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. I wanted to just have as a picture, and I'll bring in David as last thought, but the profile of your grandfather and having this as a symbol that is so regal. We need to consider ourselves not just children of God, but children of the planet. Children, we are truly children of the planet. So David, you have your hand up. Closing thoughts?
Mine is to appreciate this because I know 2 months ago, Maponga stood in the streets of Nairobi and he said to us young people who were there listening to him, he told us, young people, after my speech, go back to your home and study your parents, study your grandparents, study your great-great-parents, so that to understand your problems. You might be having problems today, but you don't understand them because you don't understand your past. And if by doing the study you're doing, Dr. Wilton, you're actually relating and walking the path of what Maponga said 2 months ago. And I thank you so much, Maponga, for what you've said, that knowledge is power and information, and to inform is to liberate.
Mm.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I have two questions for you, Mr. Maponga. First question is, how can I join the Farmers of Thought? And the second question is a request. What can you tell a 24-year-old young African who is a passionate historian?
It goes back to what you just said. You don't have a passion for history. You have it in your blood, oral tradition. Find out who in your tribe, who in your DNA was a storyteller and a historian. And when you find that person, you'll have found yourself. You are the subject of study. You are the encyclopedia of the knowledge you are looking for.
Thank you. This is episode 32. Signing off. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Reverend Maponga. Thank you, David Okeza. And thank you, VP Damian Cook had to leave early. But thank you, gentlemen, one and all. All right, conclude. Thank you. Good night.